Hey everybody, Crazy Canuck here. Welcome to another episode of Course Design 101. Huge thank you to all the kind words in the comments section of the previous videos. I can see a lot of you are beginner designers and maybe new to the series and looking for some guidance, and I'm really glad that these tutorials are helping get a lot of you started. So I'm really enjoying making them. There's a lot more to come, and like I said, the kind words are awesome and overwhelming in a sense too. If you want to watch some live design, me do some design live on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, usually around 7 p.m. Pacific, I stream some PGA Tour. And I make sure I always throw some design in kind of near the end of the stream usually. So if you want to see my process in action, you want to hop in and ask some questions, please feel free, or you can watch the video on demand on my Twitch channel when it's over. All right. So let's move on to episode number 5. Today we're going to look at how to create water. So we're going to look at today, I'm going to teach you how to create a basic lake, a basic little stream in a creek, and just kind of the features involved in creating water. Now, you might be asking, come on, show me a waterfall. Show me how to build a waterfall. We got to be able to walk before we can run. Waterfalls are a little bit tricky and they're really finicky. So I'm not going to show you that in this video. If you desperately want a waterfall tutorial, I do have one in my TGC 2019 videos in Course Design 201. I'm going to be updating them for this video. I do the waterfalls a little bit differently now, but if you're desperate and you really want to see it now, that video might help you. Okay, so on to water. Water in general is kind of a finicky part in this designer. It's kind of weird how it works. It makes sense but it's a little bit weird. Okay, so on all the plots underneath the terrain, there is a water table. So in other words, once you, for example, use the landscape tool and lower it down, eventually you'll hit water, like I have there. Okay, so you can you can go to hit water and you can create yourself a little lake if you want. And you can have it look like that and say, there's my lake. But this is a really ugly looking lake. I mean, I want my lake to be almost like right on the surface. Okay, this is almost like a hole. This is like a water hole. I don't really want a water hole. I want a lake. Okay, so I just undid that there. So what you can do is you can use this create water tool feature. This is especially valuable at higher elevations. If you want to add some water at higher elevations, you're not going to be able to use that water table way down below because you're going to have this giant water crater. So you're going to have to be able to use this water tool. So for this tutorial, let's build a small lake kind of just off the tee here. Maybe we'll build one kind of right here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my raise tool, and I'm going to just use my fuzzy brush. And I'm going to lower it down a bit. It doesn't have to hit the water. It can hit the water depending on where you are, but it doesn't have to. Just an area where I'm going to make a simple little lake. Kind of like that. So I kind of moved it over to here as well. So in order to make water, I'm going to go to Create Add. I'm going to head down to Create Water and select Water Body. And then this blue square pops up. This is your water. Now, this is where I think a lot of designers get a little frustrated because they're like, well, this is just a square of water. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, how do I build a lake? The thing to remember with water is you're just adding another plane of water or a water table on top of the default one that's already there. In order to build your lake, you're going to mold the terrain around it, if that makes any sense. So, for example, here, I made my little depression, kind of where I want to put my lake. So I'm going to just make this water bigger. So I can do this just by moving the D-pad up and down. I can also advanced edit, where I can make it really skinny, really fat, really thick, really fat, really thin. I can't remember the words I used. Anyway, so I'm just going to put down this like square of water. You can make it as big as you want. Okay, maybe it looks like that. And then I'm going to lay it down. So from there, this is now where we can edit our lake, and we can make it as however big or small that we want. What you also have to make sure, though, is remember, this is a square water, so sometimes these edges will show like this, and we need to hide these edges. Okay, that's because those will show up, and it's going to look really jarring in the designer. You're going to have this weird edge of water that doesn't make sense. So we have to hide that. So in order to do that, just use your flatten tool and just go around and create the lake you want. So I'm going to start by just kind of covering up those edges like that. And then I say, oh, maybe I want to bring the water in a little bit. I'm just going to add a little bit more over here. Maybe I want to make the lake a little smaller over here. Okay, so I'm just making little adjustments. So maybe I want to bring this down a little bit. So this is more at the water's edge. And there you go. So if you go too far, again, you can only go as far as how big you made the plane. So see, I can keep the, because the plane's going all the way over here. But as you can see, I hit edge right here. I don't want that. Okay, so I can, again, just with the flatten tool, I can just cover it up. Sometimes I just raise it a little bit. Okay, it takes practice to make a lake, but there you go. There's a little lake using the Create Water tool. So let's move over and do a creek. So we're just going to do a basic one. You can do a downhill flowing creek. It's a little bit finicky. You have to create multiple different water tables and add some little features to make it look like it's kind of rushing down the hill. I'm not going to get into that because it's real finicky, and this tutorial will take an hour. So I'm just going to show you how to build like a creek, which maybe you might have weaving through a flatter portion of your plot, maybe through a hole. Like for example, I wouldn't put a flat creek on this hole because this is an uphill hole. So I'm just going to go over here and I'm just going to kind of have a flatter section. So just you don't have to flatten perfectly the plot that you're going to put a creek on, but just for ease of showing you guys, I'm just going to make a flat section here, and I'll delete these trees. Sculpt land, dev generated objects, and bye-bye trees. All right, there we go. Now we got a better little plot to work on. So just like with a lake, if you want to go all the way down to your water table, you can. So if you were pretty close to the surface, maybe you might want to, but here, as you can see, I'm pretty deep, and if I were to make a creek, this is not a creek, this is like a water canyon. And this is another thing I see beginner designers do a lot when they make water, is it looks like this because they don't know how to use the water tool. We don't want that, okay? We want to make ourselves a nice little creek that's, the water level is really close to the surface. We don't want to make it look like a canyon. So how do we do this? Again, you can use the little round tool. Make it really, really small if you're going to do a creek. Okay, really, really small. Okay, and then I'm going to lower it down. And then I'm just going to trace how I want my creek to look. Maybe it'll kind of come like this. We've got a little meander here. And boom. Okay, so it hasn't quite reached the ground level, but that's okay. We've got our start. Okay, so now we're going to go back to creating water. And you can, if you want, just use your water plane, and you can just do this and fill it in and raise it up, and you're done. But there's some cool features with the water body, is you can actually you can add flow rate to it, so you can change the rate of the flow, which is really cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple little sections of water. So for example, like this part of the creek is going to flow straight that way. So I'm just going to make my plane a little bit bigger. Just raise it up, maybe about that much. Okay. So see how it says water flow rate? I'm going to click down on my left stick, and now I can adjust the flow direction and speed. So look at the water really closely. Right now the water's not moving, but if I move the speed, see how I can make it move now? Okay, and you can have it flow in a realistic direction. So I don't want it to flow that way. I want it to flow the other way. Well, I think I went too far. Something like There. It's actually flowing backwards, but that's okay. Okay, so you can have it do that. And maybe for my next piece, I want it to flow a different way. So if you want it to flow a different way, you actually have to add another body of water. Oh, I actually accidentally deleted that. Hold on, I hadn't laid it down yet. There we go, it's flowing. So I'm gonna press A to lay it down. Okay, and then I'm gonna create another little water table. And it's flowing still, but again, if you want, you can change the direction, you can change the speed, whatever you want. So maybe I'm gonna adjust it. Now it's flowing this way. And then you kind of do the same thing. Just follow it along. Change the direction, change the speed, however you want. And I'm doing this really quickly, but this is a little bit messy, but you guys hopefully get the idea. And then you've got another part that's flowing. Well, again, I'm just going to do advanced edit to make it a little bit bigger. Boom. And there we have a creek. Now, a few of this has got, some of this water table is leaked over. We want to hide that. So again, you're just kind of going over with your flat fuzzy brush, and you're just going to hide what you don't want to see. That. Oh, sometimes it shows up, so you just got to be real careful with it. Here, I missed a spot, so it's really easy to edit one. You just select it and a big yellow thing will come up. Water body, and then you can just choose to move it. And I'm just gonna make it a little bit bigger, that. And there we go. All right. It is a little finicky because it always shows up with this like bright yellow. There. Now you might see these bright blue, see the bright blue lines down there? Those won't show up in game. Unless they're above, so unless they're raised above the land, you won't see them if they're underwater. Okay, so don't worry about that. So that's a really basic kind of creek. Now you can add little effects to it if you want. Like maybe, what if we, for example, maybe want some like little rapids or something. So just for example's sake, I'm just gonna put down maybe a few little rocks just to mimic, maybe there's some little rapids in here, so. Again, we're gonna get into planting a little bit later, but let's put in a few different rocks for effect here. Maybe we want to show kind of the water kind of cascading off those rocks. You can actually go and look at a few different water effects in the water feature area. Okay, so there's a few here, but there's really only ones that I think really work kind of nicely. If you want to really create like a raging river, I kind of recommend using these falls. Okay, so if I wanted to make this like a real raging creek, you can use the waterfalls to kind of make that effect. Takes a little fiddling around, but if you want to do that, you can. Kind of creates a kind of a funky effect. So you can do that. We don't want that though. So I just want to make some little splashes. You see how like the steam's coming up now? So this is actually, you were to see how I'm raising it up. So this is what I would actually put like underneath a waterfall to kind of show that it's splashing down. But you can actually just sink it down if you want and create like a nice little steam effect if you want. You can have it splashing around if you want. I just like to lower the splashes and create just like a little cool little steam effect, which is kind of neat. Kind of long, more steam show up. Kind of a cool little effect. Don't overuse this, it looks a little silly. Honestly, the small ripples don't do a lot. Oh. Yeah, there's the small ripples that you can barely see them. I'd never use these because you can barely see them. The low splash, again, this is okay for rapids. You can use those too. The low falls, you can actually barely see it. I wish they did the low falls a little bit better. These are basically unusable. I don't use them a ton. Even for little small drop-offs, I actually use the high falls like this. If I were to create a small little drop-off, I would just advanced edit it and just make it really small and lower it down. And then you can make a little falls there. But again, this is not a place to put falls because it's a flat area. But anyway, And yeah, I think that's it. So just kind of basic use on how to make water. Water is super finicky, and like I said, it does definitely take some practice. So play around with the water tool, kind of get used to what it does, and pretty soon you'll be making some pretty cool water features in no time. So that will do it for this episode of Course Design 101. We will see you on the next one.